darkness. To some, a place where nightmares lurk. To others, a haven for ones who hide from the world. It can be an ally or an enemy, your home or your prison. It's whatever you make of it. For Bill Wingham, a horrifying concept with a poor execution. Welcome to Chapter 2 of The Season of Fables. I thought that was the last video. No, that was part 2 of Chapter 1. As I was just continuing the story of the Fables, who were cast out of their fairy tale lands and now live in the world of man, or Mundies, who just faced off against the one who caused so much pain, who turned out to be Geppetto, who grew mad with power with an obsession of control, all while dealing with the dramas of their own lives, like Bigby and Snow starting a family, Flycatcher finally getting over his grief, Beauty and Beast taking over as deputy mayor and sheriff, Cinderella showing off her skills as a spy, and many more stories that end up coming together and ending with an epic battle concluding with Geppetto and his forces beaten. Fables reclaim their homeland and reluctantly show mercy to the old carver by making him essentially a prisoner in the guise of a citizen. Seriously, with all seemingly wrapped up, where do they go from here? Well, let's dive into Volume 12, The Dark Age, and get this chapter started. It all starts with giving us a new status quo, where Pinocchio is showing his old man his new home, where he can enjoy the sights and shop, like flower shop, the candy shop, and avoid people who want Geppetto dead, which is everyone. Trying not to kill a fascist aside, we also see that Bigby and Snow are doing well. Cole is readjusting as mayor again, Beast and Beauty are finally getting the swing of things in their positions. Not sure why Beauty is a brunette now instead of a blonde. Guess the artist Michael Allard of Madman fame assumed Willingham wanted her to look more like a parody of the Disney character. We also see Kay go through hell as his powers to see all the horrible things people have done go crazy the instant he sees Geppetto and proceeds to cut out his eyes. It's a solid start showing how, though they now have to deal with the man who is responsible for so much suffering, the fables seem to be leading into peace times, at least until the next issue, where we see what's going on in the homeland. Some mercenaries are plundering some sacred treasure and artifacts Geppetto had stashed back when he was the emperor. However, the usual places like the castle and vaults have already been cleaned out. By some, the allies are able to escape, but luckily they know of an area untouched, where they find the mother lode. But it all changes when they come across a box with chains wrapped around it, which many fantasy fans will tell you always is a sign that this isn't a vault, but a prison. As for who?
Truth be told, there were long ages in there, where even I had to admit I was clearly naughty as a walnut tree. Boredom will do that even to the best of us, given enough time. We're still using that idiom, by the way. Naughty. Good. I so hate to be out of date. Oh dear me. Look how undressed I am. I must remedy that immediately, as my natural power begins to flow back into me from all of its wayward sources. Return from the fields far beyond these corrupted lands. How they latched it out of me over the years. But every prodigal must come home at last. That's the inescapable nature of things. Even the supernature reverse course. My power returns. What's that, sirs? I'm not yet introduced myself. Where are my manners? You were so corrected to scold me. I had so many names over the ages, and likely to have many more, but in time. But why don't you just call me Mr. Dark? That's a name to fit any age, and should do so splendidly, don't you think?
His mere presence killed the two thieves in an instant, along with rotting away their flesh. And as the volume goes on, he unleashes a level of evil that shakes the world in both the waking and sleeping world. As back in the North Pole, Santa notices the naughty list is going nuts as children are waking up with dark and evil thoughts. Even the head of Colin is freaking out as he tries to warn Rose at the farm, but even he's not sure what's coming. He is the boogeyman. He is the Doulahan. He is the monster in the children's closet, the embodiment of fear. He is all the boogeymen. But the point is, he is a monster, primordial fear and darkness, a force of nature. And he lets the other fables know. As his first act, he destroys the woodlands. And though most survive, some aren't as lucky, like Kay, who Dark kills when he can't tell him where the other fables are going, as they escape to the farm. Along with that, Baba Yaga is free. Well, sorta. She's stuck in the basement, but she is no longer bound by her chains. And believe it or not, it gets worse. How? While Dark was raising hell and the fables were left in a state of shock and horror, they were forced to flee another beloved home, Boy Blue gets some tragic news. Remember that cursed arrow that hit him back in volume 11? The one that was made to kill Bigby? Though it seemed the witch's cloak was able to protect and shield him from the curse, it turned out a small piece of thread that Dr. Swinehart didn't notice as he was removing the arrow remained lodged inside Blue's arm, still containing a small piece of the curse, and though it wouldn't kill him instantly, like it was made to do, it would cause an infection, leading for his arm to be amputated, which would have been the end of it, but before Mr. Dark destroyed the woodlands, he used his powers of decay to destroy the cloak, so it couldn't be used again. That decay affected every piece of the cloak, including the thread, before it was removed, meaning Blue may have avoided one curse, but now was hit with another. Everyone tries to cure him. Modern medicine has no way of undoing the curse, and it's so powerful that even magic from Frau and Flycatcher, who still has the power that he gained from the Grove, can't cure him. Blue is dying, and all they can do is just say their goodbyes. All except for Rose, who, while all this was going on, married Sinbad, we'll get into that in a minute, and has been actively avoiding Blue since they haven't talked after she rejected him. Again, the friend speech is never the right to go. After seeing Blue in this state and revealing she got married, this makes her riddled with guilt and denial as she refuses to see him again until he gets better, trying to start a relationship with him since she divorced Sinbad. Wow, Vegas weddings have lasted longer than this. She tells this to Snow and Bigby, and they aren't having it.
By then, it will be too late. He was in love with you, and you should at least...
Listen close, you insufferable little brat. Get up now and go see Blue. Don't lie there another second. If you don't get to it, then leave the farm now, and I'll never let Snow or any of our children see you again. You wouldn't enjoy the consequences.
She sees Blue and apologizes for how things turned out, saying that her rejecting him was out of fear of losing him as a friend and saw Sinbad as an easier option since, besides being a cool adventurer, was living at the farm after the stuff with the djinn. But now has decided that they should be together, and even considers a last-minute wedding. Blue immediately shuts that down.
I hate being harsh, but one of the few advantages of this is that dying men are allowed to complete and brutal condor. Here's what I believe. You gravitate towards whoever adds the most excitement to your life, for good or bad. You slept with Prince Charming because it was so wrong and you knew it would destroy your sister. The danger was irresistible. You were with Jack for substantially the same reasons. And then you started to drift towards Wayland when the two of you were up here together, and there was no one else more interesting close at hand. And you might have gone for me once early on, when I was still new and heroic and exciting. But that attraction withered as you found out that I didn't want to be a hero, that all I craved was to be dull and ordinary. And then along came Sinbad, the poor man. He couldn't know what was coming. He was perfect, heroic, and larger than life. You pounced quickly before the glamour wore off. Do you see the pattern, Rose? When I showed up here again, bravely dying, Sinbad didn't stand a chance. I was once again the most interesting man in the room. In any room. How could you resist? And this time, it's better than ever since I'll be dead long before the excitement is any danger of fading. This time, I'm your perfect man. Except that it's too late, because I finally realized that I deserve better. I don't know the particular incident, but somehow you were broken when you were young, in a way that you never recovered. I'm terribly sorry about that, but I can't fix it. I can't fix you. I hope that someday someone else can. I truly do. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm tired. I think I'll rest for a while.
Not long after, Boy Blue dies. They bury him near the baseball field. Him, Pinocchio, and Flycatcher hung out and played. They all mourn, though some are in denial that he's truly gone, like the depressed Rose, who refuses to leave her room until he comes back, the honey badger Stinky, who believes Blue can come back if they make his story exciting, and human Pinocchio, who believes that because people know the rhyme that he originates from, he could be capable of returning as well. However, I think we need to accept that Blue is gone, and he's not coming back.
You take that back, you traitors fly munching motherfucker. He was a friend! Pinocchio Fly and Blue and the three compadres.
Yes, he was our friend, and he was good and heroic and all those things that you mentioned. So why would we want to drag him back into this world of woes and heartbreak? One thing I've learned recently is that there are, in fact, other lives possible after this one. Places of reward and rest. Don't you think he earned a better life somewhere? And yeah, that's how the volume ends. Well, okay, there is a story with Bigby and Mowgli, which is pretty cool, but it doesn't really affect the main plot. But does have a robotic tiger, who comes back in the next chapter. But yeah, volume 12 is a heavy one. The Fables lost their home, their friends, and one of them being a main character at that, along with a new threat they have never faced before. How will they stop it? Well, we'll have to wait for most of that, because the next volume, the Great Fable crossover, has almost nothing to do with Mr. Dark. Yeah, he makes a brief cameo in the beginning, but that's it. Despite the name, with the implication this would cross over with all the Fables titles and give each one a moment to shine, it mostly focuses on Jack of Fables. Sure, it starts out with giving the Fables characters focus, like the Honey Badger, Stinky, now calling himself Brock Blueheart, enacting his plan to make Boy Blue into a far greater character by starting a cult around him, where he tells tales of him going on insane adventures in the style of Jack Kirby comics, Bigby and Beast duking it out as Dark's presence is compelling people into acts of rage out of random, despite him not knowing where they are. And later we see Rose, who, besides becoming a depressed shut-in, has become paranoid as she's been trying to avoid seeing Colin's head again. Besides that, it's mostly focusing on Jack's story and supporting cast, like the stuff with his son, the new Jack Frost, his evil twin. Yes, this asshole has an evil twin. And the biggest threat of the story, the Literals. Now, Literals first appeared in Jack of Fables. Unlike Fables, who are just the characters from classic tales and rely on people remembering their stories and names, Literals are living embodiments of story and literary devices, like Jack's buddy Gary, who is literal of the pathetic Falsey, which, if you slept through high school English, that means he represents adding human traits to non-human things, like somber forest, or raging storms, or his grandson, Mr. Revise, who represents revisions in stories, meaning he can retcon a character into a different version of themselves. And then we got our main antagonist, Kevin Thorne, who represents the actual writer of stories, which, as you can guess, makes him very powerful, as he can literally alter the narrative of all stories, meaning he can warp reality. Again, it's a fun story, a lot of meta jokes, action, and funny moments like Bigby becoming Detective Chimp and then a little girl. But again, it has nothing to do with the greater part of this chapter. It's just a fun detour that I'd recommend if you're curious on what Jack was up to and haven't read the spin-off, or just want to see him team up with the Fablecast again. Anyway, what happened when they got back to their issues at the farm? Well, they gather the witches in volume 14, well, witches, though we do learn more about Dark's backstory, or at least how he became trapped in the box, as an order of monks went to war with him, and though it was a brutal battle and almost seemed hopeless, they were able to trap him. It's pretty solid, and it helps paint a picture of how Dark views the world as specks in reality. Meanwhile, Bigby and Snow come back from the crossover, and we have a meeting at the farm with the 13 floor magicians of Fabletown, led by Ozma from the Oz series, the Fair Witch from Thumbelina, and of course Frau, where Ozma suggests that she should be the new leader of the coven. Meanwhile, we find out that Buffkin, Frankenstein's monster, and the Magic Mirror survived the destruction of the woodlands, but like Baba Yaga are caved in and trapped in the assistant mayor's office. They're stuck dealing with Baba Yaga, who is roaming within the wreckage and planning to escape to join Mr. Dark, but luckily, with the help of some Lilliputians who survived as well, Buffkin and the guys plan to fight back with the artifacts they can get their hands on. And yeah, that is the most interesting thing going on in this volume, because the rest is just boring. Don't get me wrong, it was pretty cool at first to see the Coven interact with each other and meet some of them, like Maddie, a talking cat that's actually Medea from Greek mythology, Mr. Grandors from the Wizard King, and so on. But afterwards, it just becomes the equivalent of, we should do something, from Lankar's Countdown review. Meanwhile, Mr. Dark is no better, who just stands around making creepy speeches while his undead soldiers go through the wreckage of Fabletown. He uses his powers to keep the Mundies from noticing and leave him alone, and builds him a castle where it once stood. Besides the main B plot with Buffkin, sometimes we get some cool stuff happening, like Frau rejuvenating herself, encountering one of the monks that trapped Dark, Beauty and Beast learning that they will be expecting, Bigby and Snow trying to spy on Dark, only to end up with him killing the spy, and Geppetto getting allies in the form of two dryads. But for the most part, it's mostly talking in circles, with the only true saving grace being Buffkin fighting with Baba Yaga. In the end, Buffkin and his friends kill Baba Yaga, and the Fables might have found a new ally in the form of the Blue Fairy, who was able to be restored to full power after Geppetto pretty much enslaved her. But first she wants to get revenge on him. But then that stops halfway, and we focus on a two-parter with Flycatcher, which I'm just going to skip since it just retreads stuff that happened in Volume 10, but lamer and with a baseball backdrop for some reason. So let's move on to Volume 15, Rose Red, and with a title like that, we should start with her.